Alright, quick update on Ethereum. So, as of the time of recording this, Ethereum is flirting with the $1,000 mark once again. It looks like we are breaking down somewhat harshly since our previous video, which is what we were predicting. In the last video, we were highlighting a range of bearish indicators. I won't get into all of them. What we were mainly focusing on was the fact that we'd once again come in and got rejected from the daily EMA ribbons. We were also forming this nasty bear flag, which is interesting because normally what Ethereum does is you have a breakdown, you form something reminiscent of a bear flag, bearish pennant, you let the daily EMA ribbons catch up to you, and as you finally come into the EMA ribbons, you have that major breakdown. And this was what we were predicting previously, perfectly panned out. You know, we were breaking up into the EMA ribbons, collided with them here, and now we're starting the next breakdown. So just like we said in the previous video, unfortunately, you know, the price target of this bear flag breakdown would actually be down here at $300. So I'm not going to focus on that target. I don't think it's going to be hit at all. But there are some price targets that I do think will get hit on the way down. So the $1,000 psychological level right about here, this is going to be a major area of support, but I do not think it's going to hold. And what do I think is going to happen after we have a major flush with a daily candle body close below $1,000? I think we're going to very quickly head down to these lower price targets. Now, if we mark a couple of fibs, like I said, on the way down, there are a few levels that we can collide with. Right off the back, you have $631, which is your 1.618 Fibonacci extension of the previous fib from our low to our high. So, you know, from where we are right now, I do expect after you solidify about another 10% breakdown to the downside, you'll probably be rocketing a further 33.5% down to $631. The strength of the market is very weak right now. We'll be looking at momentum indicators solely towards the end of the video, and then wrapping up with how Ethereum is performing against Bitcoin. But with this chart, we've simply got the RSI plotted, and it's really not looking too good. Every single time from the all-time high, you can just see we are forming lower highs after lower highs after lower highs, time and time again. And every little bounce that we have, you know, this bounce was really pathetic. Every single bounce is just a lower high. So this should show you something about the strength in the market right now. It is not just Ethereum, everything's looking shaky. For example, total crypto market cap is breaking below the 200-week moving average. Bitcoin against the US dollar is breaking below its previous all-time high. So this is going to allow us a lot of momentum to move back down to the downside. And you can already see Ethereum is moving down from its previous all-time high a lot quicker and a lot harsher than Bitcoin is. And this is why we're seeing ETH BTC start to propel back down. It was previously holding up very well. I think a lot of people thought this was just going to ride its way up to the upside and it was never going to have a bear market against Bitcoin again. We were obviously talking about since all the way up here. We were telling you, you know, you've got a massive head and shoulders. We were saying we're going to do something like this. We're going to break down, head down pretty quick. I think we're specifically looking at bouncing on the 0.618. We actually bounced on the 0.5, but now it looks like we're going to be heading down to these much lower prices. Ethereum, USD, as you can see, there's really not a lot to talk about. Every time you come up into the daily EMA ribbons, you lollygag for about a week or so before a major move back down. This is why I think basically your $1,000 needs to hold. I don't think the 2.618 Fibonacci that we've got from, I believe this is from this low to high, here it is. So from this previous low to high, you've got a 2.618 down here at 942. This basically lines up with these lows quite nicely as well, but I do not think this is going to hold. What I could see potentially happening is something like this, where you've got a left shoulder, you've got a head, and then potentially you could see something like this coming down, maybe somewhere near the 2.618, around about 950, as you're breaking below the previous, or not the previous all-time high, as you're breaking below the $1,000 psychological level, and then you'll be gearing up for that next major move back down. So even in the short term, mid-term time frames, higher time frames, 942 seems like the price that we're coming down to. Obviously $1,000 is a big psychological level, but from here, these two targets are going to get smashed through, in my opinion. Another 10% drop is very, very likely to happen very, very soon. And by that, I mean within the next week, we will be heading down about another 10%. And then subsequently from there, we will be moving down to some of these levels like the 1.618 at 630. We might be having a bounce. Something like this could be playing out as we do head down to our $500 price target, which is where I personally think that Ethereum is going to be bottoming against the US dollar. I could imagine the Bitcoin bottom would be playing out beforehand, around about maybe $630. Bitcoin could have a big bounce, Ethereum could outperform Bitcoin for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be heading back down. Why do I think that's going to be the case? Well, I talked about this before. If you look at what happened on how Ethereum performed against Bitcoin, we know that Bitcoin bottomed around, I believe it was the 10th of December 2018. So where I've marked this vertical line, what you will notice is this was Bitcoin's exact bottom. Bitcoin had a bounce. Altcoins like Ethereum, as you can see, we're currently plotting Ethereum against Bitcoin, outperformed Bitcoin for about a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. Then what did Bitcoin do? Bitcoin did something like this, where it made a low, it had a bounce, and then it came down and made a higher low. Ethereum didn't do that. Ethereum bounced from its low, came down, made another lower low, and then came down and made another lower low. And then we more or less just traded sideways against Bitcoin for about a couple of years. 840 days was how long we capitulated from Bitcoin's low all the way down to once Ethereum once again started outperforming Bitcoin. So I think a lot of people think, you know, within the next month, Ethereum is just going to bottom, and then all of a sudden it's just going to rocket. It's going to outperform Bitcoin for years and years and years until, you know, 2025, and then it will start really gearing up into the next bull run. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we do have a long, boring amount of bearish accumulation, lower lows of Ethereum against Bitcoin coming out. Right now, we're currently sitting at 5.5% of a Bitcoin. That is the valuation of one Ethereum. But I think it's more likely we come down to about 3%. Yeah, I think this 3% mark is going to be the absolute golden area for Ethereum to come down to, and this would still mean that Ethereum is bullishly holding its 786 Fibonacci against Bitcoin. So once again, I really don't think this is too outlandish to say whatsoever. You know, if you told people drawing your fib from your low to the high that Ethereum would have come down to these levels to about 4% of a Bitcoin after coming up to 15% of a Bitcoin, I think a lot of people would have thought you would be wrong and it was sacrilegious. But we went from 15% of a Bitcoin down to 1.6% of a Bitcoin, which is literally, you know, over a 90% drop. And I'd be saying that Ethereum is coming up from 8% of a Bitcoin down to 3% of a Bitcoin, which is a 63% drop. That would account for diminishing returns. And I think that would be a lot more sensible to estimate. As you can see, this is what we've been estimating for quite a long period in time right now. We were calling for about a 30, well, we were calling from it all the way up here actually. If you go back to my videos round about the 16th of May, 23rd of May, we were calling for this massive head and shoulders to break down. We were calling for the same thing over on Binance as well, which was also holding up well. So we were calling for something like a 35% drop. And even after this big bounce in the past couple of weeks, we're still down almost 20% against Bitcoin. This is still what I see coming into fruition. Since the last update, we've moved up a tiny bit with this bounce, so I'll have to move this up. I do expect about another 41% drop to the downside, meaning that once again, Ethereum should be priced at about 3% of one Bitcoin. I think that's very, very conservative. As you can see, if we do switch over to the Fibonacci's, Ethereum is entering a major capitulation right now. Look at the volume predicts price, and as you can see, there is a large amount of sellers stepping into this market right now. Over on Binance, people are selling their Ethereum, they are buying Bitcoin with that. What they're doing with that Bitcoin, who knows? But nonetheless, people are exiting the Ethereum ecosystem. When we were up here at about $2,000 and I was telling people Ethereum's coming down to $1,000, some people didn't believe me, some people laughed, and I imagine some people will not believe me when I'm saying that in my opinion Ethereum's coming down to $500. Nonetheless, we're at 1,050 right now. This is where I see the next leg to the downside coming into play. Alright, let's finish off the video looking at how Ethereum is doing in the lower time frames. We've looked at the higher time frames, so it shouldn't come to any surprise when we do switch over to the weekly that you are seeing the oscillators like the MACD in a massive bearish stance at this moment in time. You can see basically every high that we've had since the 10th of May 2021 has been a lower high in the market structure for the MACD, so we're massively heading down. We are basically, have we ever been this low for the MACD? We have never been this low for the MACD. So the MACD is completely getting beaten to the downside right now. Momentum in the markets is very much struggling to stay awake. Looking at the MFI is basically down to August 2018 capitulation levels. Bear in mind, even when some money started flowing back into the market, it wasn't the exact bottom. So I don't think the bottom is in quite yet. I do think we're very near to the bottom, which is why I've been saying, you know, $500 Ethereum, and then that is where I believe the bottom is going to take place. I don't think it's going to drop much lower than that. Nonetheless, still a little bit of a way to go, about another 50% drop for Ethereum. The squeeze mom as well is basically breaking down to historic low levels. Now, we did this as well on the 7th of March 2022 rather, but we are still capitulating right now. So like I said, we really shouldn't have to look at the weekly momentum indicators after doing all that analysis to recognize the markets are bearish. But let's head over to the lower time frame, starting off on the daily. So since the most recent bounce that we've been witnessing with this formation of this flag, within this bear flag, we have obviously gained a slight bounce, just like we had a slight bounce back over here, where we had a nice little run up for the MACD as we were forming something like a bear flag as we were breaking down. This was kind of just a breakdown accumulation range before another breakdown rather than a typical bear flag. Nonetheless, we're seeing the exact same thing here. We have made a lower high from this flip of the MACD, and if we do look at what's going on right now, you're noticing this dark blue momentum coming in, meaning that bears are basically starting to step back in as bulls start to step back out of the market. Looking at the MACD, it doesn't look like it's started to head back down yet because we've been very, very flat. If we look at the daily, if we look at the 4-hourly time frame at the moment, we should be able to see if we are starting this next leg back down. The MFI has basically come up and double topped once again, come right up to the heart line, and then it's now breaking down. So that's not a good sign if you are holding Ethereum right now. The squeeze mom, I would like to say that we are basically at neutral right now, but I would also need to say that we have done this time over time again since the bear market starts. We come back, reset, come down, 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 reset. And here, you know, we came down, reset, reset, and reset again. So I really wouldn't be too surprised if we take another leg to the downside, even though we are relatively neutral right now. If we do head over to the 4-hourly time frame, let's see what's going on. So 4-hourly squeeze mom is or the MACD rather, 4-hourly squeeze mom, 4-hourly MACD rather, is starting to head back down. We do have this dark blue coming in. It does seem like we are experiencing a rounding formation over on the MACD right now. This looks like it's going to cross bearish very, very soon. We are also forming a mini bear flag. So this will also explain, actually looks more like a pennant to me, a bearish pennant. This will explain why we are seeing a tiny bit of sideways capitulation slash chop at this moment in time. So the breakdown on the lower time frames has not started just yet, but we are very, very close to that breakdown. If we do start heading back down to $1,000, if you're watching this video and we're already down at $1,000, then know that things like the MACD would have probably already crossed bearish. The squeeze mom would have run out of momentum. As you can see, we are just making lower high after lower high after lower high. The bearish momentum is just having these crazy wicks to the downside over on the squeeze momentum indicator. So very, very nasty stuff if you are holding ETH right now. Once again, I do think this is going to go head lower. All time frames kind of point to it. You know, the money flow indicator came all the way up to 80, and pretty much every time you come up to here, you normally start coming back down because we were basically overbought. Lots of people rushed in while we were in this bear flag to buy the dip on Ethereum. A lot of people still buying the dip on altcoins, which kind of should tell you there is still some greed in the market. We are basically almost entering a confirmed recession with the stock market heading down, absolutely getting brutalized. You can see every weekly bounce, we have altcoin buyers throw themselves out of bed, and then the stock market makes a lower high, and then it starts heading back down to the downside. With the stock market opening tomorrow, I do think if this starts to head down, and I do think it is, that we're going to witness Ethereum come down to $1,000 very, very quickly. After $1,000, there is literally nothing to save us apart from $944. If you lose this 2.618 Fibonacci at 944, you're going to basically fall down to 630 like that. So we're already witnessing Ethereum lose a lot of momentum. If you are looking to keep track of this yourself, I'd mainly be focusing on drawing something like this, like a bear flag, bearish pennant, whatever you want to call it, from the wicks that we've got down here. You can imagine once Ethereum starts dropping heavily below $1,040, we're going to be heading down to 1,000, then head down to 600, then head down to 500 very, very quickly. So that is all I've got for Ethereum. Basically everything we looked at calls for lower price targets. Hope you found some value in today's content. I will be letting you know when I do plan on buying Ethereum, but until the next update, just know I do have a couple of buy orders set around about $510. Even though my price target's 500, I want to make sure that I'm front running the market in case we come down to like 505, 504, 503, and then I've got my buy order set at 500 and I'm just, you know, out of the water and I haven't managed to buy anything. So 510 right off the bat, that is my only buy order for ETH right now. We'll see if it gets hit. I do think we'll be down there in the next couple of months. And as always, cowboy out. Peace.